What happened at the end of the Oregon game was inexcusable, but it wasn't coaching. It's the rewind. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate you being here. This is part of that new segment we've been talking about called the Rewind, where after a day, I can go back and watch the game again, get my actual thoughts because the reaction shows are tough. Obviously, we were there for this one. So this is a rewind. We're going to be talking about that second half disaster. What happened down the stretch of that game specifically? Whose fault was it? When we go back and actually watch what happened, break it down. We're going to talk about the big picture. So how freaked out should people be or not? And then we're also going to get into some of your thoughts and some of your questions, some of your comments. That's coming up next. But first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I got to start here. So we had the Locked On Badgers meetup for the Oregon game, which once again, an event organized by Ryan Herrings, the Badgers lose that we go to. So that's probably on me. But I do want to shout out the people who were there. Incredible. I got to meet, I'm going to forget people, but Nick, Tracy, Andy, Kyle, Zach was there. Rob Sorensen was there. Connor, oh my goodness gracious. Mo was there. Rick was there. There were so many great people there. So many great people. Just Joe, got to meet Beckham, Beckham is like the sharpest 8-year-old Badger fan in the world. He knows the roster from top to Chris Hodges. That guy's incredible. Got to meet him. And then Darren Jones, who gave the group a tour. He's awesome. Owe him such a debt of gratitude. It was an awesome time. And I'm not just saying that to acknowledge everybody that was there, because one of the goals of this show and this podcast and this community is to make it cooler to be a Badger fan, right? These meetups are part of that. We can get people together. We can become friends within the community. That is one of the goals of this show. But it's also to let people who weren't there know, hey, we're going to do more of these. So if you want to come out, we're talking about doing a volleyball one. We're talking about doing a hockey one. We're going to do a football one coming up, either Maryland or Iowa probably. We get together. We hang out as Badger fans. We eat wings. We drink beer. We talk it up. It's a ton of fun. So if you want, I would love to see everybody come out to these. It's just a great way to build community. And a big shout out and thanks to everybody who showed up this weekend, to Darren Jones, to Brian Mason, to people on the Wisconsin side that helped make this an incredible event as well. So that's that. Let's talk the end of the Oregon game now. We have to talk what happened. We were in the Kohl Center, at the very top of the Kohl Center, our group. So even though we saw it, me being able to go back and rewatch what happened was really good. I was able to see, I want to focus in on the end of the game, the last few plays of that collapse in regulation before overtime hit. Let's start here. 18.5 seconds left. We have the ball up 3. Okay, up 3, 18.5 left. Gilmore's inbounding from the far side of the hoop. He has Tanjay coming down, throws a bad pass to him. It was open because I was watching the reaction show back, and I was seeing all the comments that were incredibly frustrated at Greg Gard for various things. And I don't think Greg Gard was perfect in this game. And I know there's people, the reason I'm addressing this is I know there's people who say I'm way too easy on Greg Gard, too hard on the players. And one of the comments, one of the criticism was Greg Gard can't coach these guys to get the ball in. Well, again, that's why I went back and watched. No biases, no hangover, no IPAs in me. Let me go back and actually watch what happened. So 18.5 seconds left. Gilmore has the ball. Tanjay breaks down straight. The pass is there. It's wide open. Gilmore just makes a bad pass. That's not on guard. It's just not. Gilmore throws a bad pass. Quite frankly, we got a break there. That ball was out on Tanjay. 100%, 98%. That ball was out on Tanjay. We caught a break. That's just a bad pass by Gilmore. If he just hits Tanjay in stride, Tanjay catches it, gets fouled. It's as simple as that. It's a bad pass. That's not on guard. That's on player execution. That's on sloppiness. Now, you could argue sloppiness could be on guard, but only if it's a trait carried throughout the entire season. And this team has not been a high turnover team. So, okay, we catch a break. We get the ball. 17 seconds left. We're throwing the ball in. Guard gets – they kind of come up out in a staggered line a little bit. Blackwell breaks down towards the baseline, wide open. He just drops it, man. It's not the greatest pass. I think it was Kles throwing it in. but Blackwell just drops that ball. He just takes his eyes off. He's that receiver who has 3 yards on the defensive back and looks to the end zone, takes his eye off the ball and just drops it, and everybody's in front of everybody. Again, that's not on guard. That's just one of your star players not focusing. It's inexcusable. John Blackwell will tell you that because Blackwell's a dude. Blackwell's a dog. He's good. He would tell you that's inexcusable. That's not on guard. That's just a lack of execution down the stretch. So let's get to the next one. So this sets up a chain of events, right? Where if you'd inbounded those passes, if Blackwell had caught it, if Gilmore had thrown a better pass, then you start getting fouled, then you start getting to a line, up 3, shooting as a team again, 84% from the line with 17 seconds left. You win this game. It's as simple as that, despite everything that happened, despite some of the sloppiness, despite some of the odd coaching rotations. Like, again, I don't think this is a great Greg Gard game either, but you win this game if you just catch those inbound passes, which you don't. So that sets up Oregon ball. 17 seconds left. They kick it in, goes over to Shellstead. Blackwell's guarding him, takes kind of a step back, 6 feet behind the 3-point line, 5 feet behind the 3-point line, and buries it. Okay, 2 things here. A lot of people said you got to foul him in that moment. Guys, you can't foul up 3 with 17 seconds left, 16 seconds left. You can't foul a guy 30 feet from the hoop. If people would lose their mind over that, let's just be super clear. If Blackwell fouled him at that moment when he was 5 feet behind the 3-point line with 15 seconds left, people would lose their mind. That's not the right call. You let him take a 30-foot 3, and he just banged it. Now, here's the one thing where I'd say we were coming out of a timeout there. I'm not sure, obviously, what Greg Gard said in the timeout, but he needed to be emphasizing no threes, overplay the 3, a lot of ball pressure. I don't think Blackwell played that as hard as he had to. I don't think Blackwell had as much pressure there guarding that deep 3 as he should have, and that might be on coaching. Okay, maybe that wasn't emphasized in the huddle. Blackwell's still a younger player. He's a ways out, but it doesn't matter if he's in a deep spot at this point. Talking about Shellstead, the Oregon shooter, up 3 with 17 seconds. You got to crowd him. You got to crowd even the deep 3, and maybe that wasn't emphasized in the timeout. So that could have been in coaching. So then they hit that. Here's the other one that a lot of people talked about. So now it's a tie game. About 10 seconds left. You're inbounding. You have a timeout if you want. You don't use it, okay? Klesmit gets the ball, takes it up court. Obviously, everyone remembers what happens next. It's a Klesmit ISO, top of the key, dribbles to the right, spins back to the left, gets a bit of a – it's not a terrible look, but it's also – it's a contested kind of fadeaway 17-footer, 15-footer from Klesmit. That's not also a great look. It's what I would call a mediocre look. If he made it, it wouldn't have shocked me. It also didn't shock me that it was a foot short, right? It's not a great look. I don't think you need to call timeout there. I've said that. I'm okay with Gard not calling timeout for 2 reasons. The first is this is a veteran team. Veteran teams, a lot of coaches will let veteran teams roll in that situation. You let them go because when you call timeout, that the other team gets a timeout too. It's not just you that gets to set something up. Oregon then gets to set up a defense. They're going to put in their 5 bounciest, most athletic, versatile, switchable defenders, right? They might even come out in some type of matchup zone. They could do something that could completely throw you for a loop. And keep in mind, the Badgers have had trouble getting the ball in bounds because we've been dropping passes. So maybe they pressure the inbounds pass. You don't even get a decent look. I don't hate not calling a timeout there. What I don't love is I think if you have a John Tonje, he needs to come up and get the ball. He needs to come up, dribble handoff, then you isolate, and it's Tonje for the win. Because that's why you have a John Tonje. And I know it wasn't his greatest game. I would rather live or die with a contested ISO from Tonje than I would with a contested ISO from Max Klesmit. It's just a better percentage shot. Here's the one criticism I might have a Greg Gard in that situation, which I think is fair. So Klesmit's bringing the ball up again. I don't mind not taking an initial timeout in that situation. I think it's fine. Truthfully, I think it's fine because it's a veteran team. Gard is trusting him. I'm okay with it. But at about 6 seconds, Klesmit still hasn't fully initiated. He's near the half-court line. I think at that moment, you got to realize this is probably going to be a Klesmit ISO. Now I might take the timeout if I'm Gard. Now I might take it and say, okay, I don't see anything really quickly happening here. I don't see a cross match. Like sometimes you can catch a team in a cross match, or sometimes they're not paying attention and you can get kind of a scramble situation. That wasn't happening with Oregon's defense. They were pretty set. They were locked in. At that point, if I'm Gard, 6 seconds left. All right, let's call timeout. Let's set something up. I think that's a fair criticism if you want it to go that way. But ultimately, I think most of that second half collapse, most of those last sequences were our guys just not executing. And if you talk to them, if you talk to a Tonje, a Gilmore, Blackwell, like, they're going to say, I got to catch the ball. Gilmore would say, I got to make a better pass. Klesmit might say, I got to get the ball to Tonje. And Tonje should come up and get it. Blackwell's probably going to say, man, I needed to just stay glued to Shelstead at the three-point line. I think it was more on the players. And it doesn't make it okay. Like, it's inexcusable either way. You can't lose a game in that matter. But I am going to talk about why it might help the Badgers going forward. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers, plus your comments. First, a quick second. Great friends of the show over at Prize Picks. Man, we are getting into the nirvana season of basketball, right? March Madness is coming up. And right now, March Madness is here. There's no better way to get in on the action than Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's a lot of zeros. I could use 1,000 times my cash. It's fast, easy, keeps every game exciting. You build lineups. Like you could pick Jason Tatum this week. You could pair Jason Tatum with, my guy Devin Booker, and you're just picking more or less points, rebounds, assists, those kind of things. Plus Taco Tuesday deals. Prize Picks offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. So you play a $5 lineup, you get $50 instantly. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, let's get some of your comments in here. You guys let me know if I'm way off. I don't know. These, again, when we have these talks, this isn't necessarily the right opinion. It's just my opinion. I think that's what makes this community great, is it's an exchange of ideas and thoughts. Like my opinion isn't necessarily the right one. Pedro says, must have been tough to rewatch that second half. I'm not envious. Yeah, but you have to when you're like, for me to actually come back and talk about this game, I have to rewatch it because it's so different watching on TV than. And it is kind of nauseating to see how we blew that game from like the 7-minute stretch on down. Nate says, lots of mistakes in the second half. Do we have an issue in the future, or is this just a fluke? This is a great thing I want to get into. Because I love this, Nate. So let me go to something that I'm finding frustrating in the discourse with this game. Okay. I keep finding this comment of, it just, man, you can't let this snowball. It's okay, but it can't snowball because you remember what happened last year. First of all, that's true for every loss in the history of sport. Like every loss in the history of sport is bad, and then if it then snowballs, right? Like the idea that this is why would this snowball more than any other loss for any other team? This team is not last year's team. And I think that's the analogy that's being drawn. Like this team is last year's team. You remember what happened last year? They had a loss and it went off the rails. This team is so different than last year's team. I mean, we're talking like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito difference. By the way, movie reference there if you guys are old enough. But my point is they are so different. This team is not last year's team whatsoever in personnel and play style and coaching staff. Like there's no analogy to draw here. There's no parallel. Just because it went off the rails for last year's team, that was a team obviously that did not play like this, did not play offense like this, had Chucky Hepburn and AJ Storr, didn't have Tonje, had a younger Blackwell, didn't have Winter doing this, didn't have McGee or Gilmore. These teams are night and day. You might as well not even call them both Wisconsin if you're going to compare them. This is a completely different unit. Just because it happened last year doesn't mean it's going to happen this year. And if it does, it's not because of anything programmatic, right? It's not because it's similar to last year, okay? Teams lose games. That's it. I think it's as simple as that. Teams lose. And Nate, by the way, this is not me unloading on you, buddy. I promise. I'm just hearing this everywhere. I'm like, God, guys, teams lose games. Every team in the top tier of the Big Ten this year, every single one. So Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, every single one of those teams has lost at least a game in February. The Badgers have lost one, just like Michigan, just like Maryland, just like Michigan State. Purdue's lost 4 in February, which leads me to my next point. Winning's really hard. Like you want to win every one of them, but I feel like we were starting to discount how difficult it is to win every game night in and night out in the Big Ten. In the NFL, it's super hard. In the NBA, it's super hard. The other teams in the Big Ten, they don't care about your projections or your momentum or your win streak or your talent. You got to come out and play well every single game. That's really hard. That's why every team in the Big Ten has lost a game in February, just like the Badgers just did. And I thought we would lose to Purdue and beat Oregon. The flip just happened. The end result is still 1-1. And that's what you got to look at. This team has lost 1 game in February. They're 11-5 in conference. They still have a really good shot at finishing 14-6. I don't think they're going to run the table. I didn't think they were going to run the table before this Oregon game. Somebody at the meetup we had asked, hey, you think they're going to run the table? I said, I don't think so. It's hard. It's hard to win night in, night out. And that's where I think people were maybe wanting me to be a little angry. And I was super frustrated that we lost that game, but also I feel like in the big picture, it's just you're going to lose a game in the Big Ten in the month of February. And if you lose 2 of them in the month of February, that's a really good month. So I guess that's where I'm at with that. Again, tell me if I'm wrong or not. Let's keep going here. Let's see. Trent Brown, Locked On Badgers After Dark. Let's go, baby. I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, ultimately, I think this team is good. I think this is a good team. So I don't think the wheels are going to suddenly fall off. And the other thing, here's the other thing I'll tell you. This team is exactly who I thought they would be. And they're a little better than they were. Like, I'm not trying to give myself too much credit, but at the beginning of the year, if you remember, we talked about it. I talked about it. I said, this team is going to have a couple games where they're just not going to shoot very well. And they're going to be reliant on the 3. And because of that, they're going to lose a couple games. Now, they're also going to have some games they're going to shoot really well and beat teams they probably shouldn't beat. But this is kind of who I thought we would be. I thought we would finish 4th or 5th in the Big Ten. And because of the shooting variability, eventually you were going to have a game where you just didn't shoot great from 3. You scored 60, 70 points. And your defense, we've talked about all year, your defense is not an elite defense. So when you score 60 or 70, you're going to lose some of those games. That just is what it is. And even this one, when you played that poorly, you had turnovers, you didn't shoot great, you still don't beat Oregon. And Oregon's a quad 1 team. That's the other thing. We're not that far off from now. Oregon scuffled lately. Oregon's a top 30 offense and a top 50 defense. This is a good Oregon team with some former 5-star guys on it and a really good coach who won an overtime game in Madison. I don't think it's as huge a collapse or as big of a deal, I think, as other people do. Bo Dragon says, here's the question. Did you ever see a Bo Ryan team fold under a press like chumps? I would never call anybody chumps. Listen, I don't think this. So I'll tell you, I think I was in the stands for this game next to, I was definitely next to Honcho and somebody else. And I said, man, I'm surprised more teams don't press us. And it's not because this team folds. It's because they don't have a true point guard. I do think that's a weakness to this team. And to your point, Bo, I would flip it around. Did Bo Ryan's good teams ever not have a true point guard? Because that matters when you're getting pressed. And I felt like this is a game where a Chucky Hepburn would have helped a lot. Or even a point guard. Like just a point guard would have helped a lot, calmed it down, would have broken the press a little bit more. And sometimes it's not about breaking the press. It's about breaking the press and then punishing the press, right? Kamari McGee did it once where he went coast to coast for a layup. We didn't punish them often for pressing. It's almost like when a team blitzes you in football, you have to be able to then occasionally go over the top and put the fear of God into them for blitzing you. Like, okay, yep, we can't do that anymore because that dude just dropped an 80-yard bomb on us. Now we got to back off. I don't think we did a good enough job of that. We felt like we were okay just getting the ball over half court. And if that's all you're doing, they're going to keep pressing you because every time they press you, even if you successfully break it, you've run 8 seconds off the shot clock, right? That's sometimes the goal of the press, by the way. Coaches won't always tell you that, but sometimes the entire goal of the press is to just burn 10 seconds off the shot clock, right? And make it difficult for the other team to execute half-court sets. And I thought Oregon was able to do that. Let's see. Sports Clip says 100% agree it's on guard, but also players got to catch the ball. Yeah, I guess I don't know who said it was on guard. I don't think it's on guard. I think players just got to catch the ball. But again, that's just me. Logan says, give Shellstat some credit, though. Yeah, listen, that's a hell of a shot. Logan's not wrong. That's a hell of a shot that he hit. And you do have to tip your cap. I do think Blackwell has to be a little more aggressive there. And maybe they didn't emphasize that in the timeout. Maybe they are in the huddle. Maybe that was a coaching thing. I thought you have to really overplay that. And I don't think it was Blackwell's best game, unfortunately. Alien Space says Blackwell should not have let him get the ball. Maybe. It's tough to completely deny an inbound play. Timothy says, not sure I'd want to relive the Oregon game. Yeah, it is fun. It was a fun time, I'll tell you that. Okay, we're going to pause there, come back. A couple comments, including, the good that can come from this game. I think there is something that this team can get from this game that might end up being more valuable than the win would have been. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show. And a quick second, as always, to say thank you for tuning in. Today's episode brought to you by our great friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is incredible. Again, NBA is going on right now. Game tips off. NBA action's just getting started. There's no better place to get in. If a player hits a clutch three, all sorts of stuff you can do in the FanDuel app. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you get paid instantly, like that's one of the best parts about this. Like you want that instant payout, so you can go to Mickey D's and get the fries and the shake, or wherever you're going to spend that money. FanDuel helps you get there. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. It's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's talk about a positive that's going to come from this, I hope. So, and then we'll get into the rest of your comments on this, and you guys tell me how right or wrong you think I am. And again, there's no right or wrong answers on this show. They're like, this is just my opinion, and it doesn't make it the right one. I think this could be a wake-up call a little bit. So the Badgers, a couple times this year, we've talked about it, have played with I felt like they played with their food a little bit. They've let second half big leads kind of disappear. Right? They've lacked consistency throughout the entirety of the game. They've had some moments where I've thought unforced turnovers have been a big deal. That killed them in the Oregon game. This might be the type of game that wakes them up a little bit more. And just there are times that you start to read your own press clippings a little bit, where you start to score 90 points every game and it feels a little too easy. This is the type of game that can kick you back in the socket. Say, okay, this magical run we're on could be over really, really quickly. This just illustrated it. We got to lock in. Some of that stuff's inexcusable. No more. We'll see. But I think veteran teams will respond well to this type of game. I think there's a lot of good film that comes out of this. And by the way, other teams are going to see this film too, right? So the Badgers better be prepared a little bit more against the press. And again, be prepared to punish it. You have enough good passers on this team. That's one of the strengths of this team. Maybe you don't have a point guard, but you have 5 or 6 pretty good passers. You have guys that can get to the rim. You shoot free throws. You got to punish teams when they press you. You have to. Otherwise, they're not going to let up, right? They are not going to let up. They will smell blood in the water if you don't occasionally punish them. And Kamari McGee did it once. You got to do it more. So I think this could be a bit of a wake-up call. I think it could give them a little bit of a sense of urgency going forward, and this might be a really good thing. This might be, big picture, a better thing than just squeaking by Oregon and not playing well and then kind of continuing the facade. When I was coaching on my staff at Connecticut, Conn College, we had a streak where we beat 3 or 4 teams. And we didn't play great, but we beat 3 or 4 teams. And there was little things in each game. And then we lost, I forget to who, but a team we shouldn't have lost to. And our coach said, you know what? We probably let a few things go in that winning streak that came back to bite us today. And because we didn't make a few plays today, it's going to feel a lot worse. But really, those things that bit us today have been happening. And I think some of these unforced turnovers have been happening. I think some of these stretches where you give up leads have been happening. So it might be a good thing to, take one on the chin because of those things, clean it up, and then get ready to go. Just my thoughts. Possible. All right, let's get some questions here. Yeah, there's some funny ones in here that I can't read. Yes, I have Ricardo Greppi time. Logan says, all I can say is hats up to Oregon. Yeah, you always got to give the other team credit. Timothy Palm, not kindergarten cop. That Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger movie quote. Let's see. Any other questions in here that you guys got? I don't see too many other questions. If you guys have questions, let me know in here. I could be missing some too. Here's one from Pedro. He said, in the presser, Gard did say the team sucks when they aren't aggressive. So hopefully he can put some money where his mouth is. I think he also said, we need to punch the press more as well, which I agreed with. Timothy said, I thought they were fine breaking the press. They were just lazy with ball security. I thought ball security was terrible in this game. Again, I thought a lot of them were unforced. I thought they just gave up the ball. Crowell had a couple. Crowell had a couple really bad ones that he's better than. That one late in the game where he just kind of threw it to nowhere. That's as inexcusable from a guy like Crowell as Blackwell not catching that inbound pass. Those are inexcusable. And again, to me, those aren't on Gard. Those are veteran players that those are simple plays that here's what I'd say. Let me reframe that. If you think that's a coaching thing where they have to go back and practice catching the ball, then this team isn't very good. Like you want to be working on things other than catching at this point. So I don't think Gard was perfect. I thought Winter should have played more. If you go back and look at, here's one for you. Rotation-wise, I thought Winter should have played more. If you go back and look at analytics, the points per possession in this game, Winter was far and away one of the most efficient players we had in a game where a lot of people struggled. I would have liked to see him more down the stretch when we were struggling to find our footing and we weren't guarding very well in the post anyway. I would have put Winter in there and then maybe doubled down on Biddle. I think that's an adjustment that could have been made and could have helped the Badgers down the stretch. Didn't happen, but yeah, Mitch says clunker off Blackwell's hands was a killer. Aaron Kennedy says, does Gard not having a point guard like Fickle not having a quarterback? It's not an excuse. So let me be clear on this. Aaron asked, is Gard not having a point guard? Is that like Fickle not having a quarterback is an excuse? Both of these coaches are fully responsible for the construction of their roster. 100%. I can tell you this coach staff tried to get a point guard in the offseason. They knew when Hepburn left that they needed one, and they just weren't able to get. They ended up getting Cam Hunter, who's more of a 2-guard. No, but it's on Gard. It's on the staff to fill out the roster. There's no excuses in Division I basketball, right? If you don't have a piece on your roster, whatever it is, like last year we didn't have a backup 5, we didn't have a few pieces. That's on Gard too. Just like having Tanjay's on Gard. Like the roster is fully on Greg Gard and his staff. There's no excuses if you're missing a piece. Like it's like a carpenter going to a job site and saying, "Man, it's a bummer. I can't shimmy up your deck railings because I don't have my screwdriver." I'm not a carpenter, clearly, so that's on the carpenter for not bringing the right tools. There's no excuses. I think there's a difference between excuses and reasons, right? Like it's not an excuse that we sometimes struggle with the press because we don't have a point guard. It's a reason that we sometimes struggle with the press because we don't have a point guard, in my opinion. Okay, let's see. I will say, this is a good one too. I wanted to bring this one up. Timothy Palm said it was like playing not to lose. I thought we stopped running offense at times in the second half. I will say that one felt like a little bit of throwback to the way we would occasionally play with Bo Ryan and Greg Gard the last several years. It felt like we stopped executing offensively, that we were just kind of running clock, running the ball out. I didn't like that. I think you got to stay aggressive, keep attacking into the post. Biddle had multiple fouls. So I think in that sense, that frustrated me down the stretch where it felt like we started to play a little, like Timothy said, not to lose. I think that one is on the coaching staff. Okay, we will wrap it up there. Again, on Wisconsin, really do appreciate you guys. If you were at the meetup, that was incredible. We're going to do more, so I hope to see more people there. Big picture, guys, I don't think this is that big of a deal, big picture. I will point out, and this is a really good point. Somebody made this. Thomas Miller made this. He said, this is a huge loss. It cost us a 2 seed, and we may not even get a double bye in the tournament. A significant loss. In that sense, I can definitely hear what Thomas Miller's saying. I think this hurts our seeding. Maybe we don't get the double bye in the Big Ten tournament. I think big picture, it doesn't change my perception of the team. But from a seeding standpoint or from a standpoint of where you get in the Big Ten tournament, this could impact that. And I think it's a fair point from Thomas Miller as well. All right. On Wisconsin, appreciate you guys. Go check out Locked On Big Ten, all the latest stories from the conference, realignment, portal news, Craig Sheeman over the Locked On Big Ten channel. On Wisconsin, appreciate y'all. We will talk later.